The purpose of this presentation is to explore my personal journey through experiences of oppression, privilege, and diversity. I'm going to discuss the critical incidents that made an impact on my life and how they have shaped my perspective on diversity and multiculturalism. The key incidents that I'm going to discuss about are social class, gender, and nationality. So the first one that I'm going to start with is social class. It's very important for me to start discussing the social class, and I'm going to discuss the social class in the context of Malawi. So I'm a Malawian who currently resides in United States, and my social class varies between these two settings. But in Malawi, I'm part of the upper middle class, and I enjoyed my life due to my parents' professional backgrounds. My parents were able to send me to the finest private schools in Malawi from my kindergarten through to grade 12. So that was the privilege that I had. And my perception of life beyond my comfort zone started when I started volunteering for a non-profit organization during my undergraduate years. That organization worked in rural areas, especially some villages that were in some settings in Malawi. When I worked there, I was shocked to realize that nearly half of the children in the village couldn't attend school despite public schools being free because of several reasons. So as I did my research and as I inquired, I found out that the most basic reason that makes the kids to not attend schools is because that there's a uniform requirement in the public schools in Malawi, and so the parents of the kids living in the rural areas are unable to provide or buy school uniforms for their kids. The other reason was that the parents could not provide enough food for their kids to eat when they're going to school, and so it was very challenging for the kids to go to school on an empty stomach, and so most kids would rather just stay home and help their parents doing different kinds of jobs to earn some money to buy their food. And the other reason was that schools in the rural areas are far apart from each other, and so kids have to walk on long distances to get to their schools, and most kids just give up because of bad weathers and different other security issues. So my prior belief was that those without an education or those that are poor simply chose to be like that because they did not want to attend school. This perception dramatically changed as I immersed myself in working in this village. I realized that getting a good education is a privilege, having food to eat every day is a privilege, and especially going to a private school was a privilege. And so there are some kids in the villages who would have made it in life, but they couldn't because they did not have the necessities to take them through school. The other issue that I'm going to talk about is sex and gender orientation. So I identify as female, and for the most part of my life, I hadn't considered that my gender would significantly impact my experiences. I attended an all private school girls for the most part, where we did not have to worry about competing with boys, and we did not have to worry about being discriminated against because of our gender or because of our sex. In the community where I lived, individuals are respected based on their financial status and achievements rather than their gender. Being someone who went to college and being someone who had a college degree, I was very well respected, and my ideas were respected because of the education I had and because of the background that I had, that my parents had money. And after I graduated, I continued to work for the organization that I volunteered for, but this time I worked on a full-time capacity. So my aim was to change the villages and make sure that at least more kids are attending schools and that they're having some sort of basic education. I aimed to meet with the village chiefs to advocate for the children's education, believing that their influential voices could sway the opinions of other villages. However, the day that I met with them face to face to discuss these important issues, I experienced the harsh reality of gender-based oppression. Immediately, the chiefs saw me, they ridiculed me, questioning why I had not brought a man to speak on my behalf, saying that they cannot listen anything that a woman says to them. They made derogatory remarks about my appearance, my clothing, the makeup I was wearing, and everything that the way I looked. And so this encounter marked the end of my association with that organization, as it became apparent that in such a setting, being female was akin to being a second-class citizen, rendering it nearly impossible to engage in critical discussions among men. The other thing that I want to talk about is nationality. That's where I encountered another critical incident. So this is basically not about me, but about a girl that I met and a girl that I went to school with. Malawi is home to refugees from various African countries, including Rwanda, Burundi, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These refugees are typically confined to refugee camps and are expected to remain there. The government has set up some provisions for them, like clinics, like schools, and there are some makeshift houses that they live in. There is also a K-through school within these camps, but the space is limited and cannot accommodate all the refugees' children. Because of this, certain organizations selected students from these camps and placed them in private boarding school to provide them with a quality education. Most of these kids from the refugee camps were doing well outside of the refugee camp. Unfortunately, despite their excellent performance on their final high school examination, refugee students are not permitted to enroll in Malawi's public universities because of some policies that are set up in place. The university selection process in Malawi relies on a common national examination for all 12 graders, with university placement determined by examination scores. Public universities are highly competitive and affordable, and as such, only the highest achieving students gain admission there. And refugee students, no matter how much they have achieved, are not allowed admission into the public university, and their only option is private university. But being refugees who do not have any source of income in the country and reliant on the upkeep that is given to them by the UNHCR, they cannot afford to go to private schools, and so they do not go to universities. During the time when I sat for the examinations, scholarships were offered to the best performing girls for further studies in China or United States. When we wrote the examinations, one of the most top achievers in Malawi was the Rwandan refugee girl in my class. She was awarded a scholarship to go and study medicine in China, but her lack of citizenship in Malawi and Rwanda presented a significant hurdle for her. She could not travel outside of Malawi because she did not have a passport, and she couldn't either go back to her country because the country was still at war. And additionally, she was unable to gain entry into Malawi's medical school due to her refugee status and the discriminatory policies that Malawi universities have set up. Her extraordinary case ultimately required all parliamentary intervention and the efforts of various stakeholders to grant her citizenship.